The grief journey continued. As you know, if you have experienced intense grief, 45 days is not enough time to actually process and find your truth, find yourself, find your purpose. But I'm here to share with you my continued grief journey, but also what I learned in that there is a how to grieve. I'm Cristi Bundukamara, psychiatric nurse practitioner with over 20 years of clinical experience. But my experience today and in this journey is of intense grief. I lost an adopted son in a drowning accident in 2005, and I have lost both of my biological children, Reggie in 2016, and Maya just 1 year ago. I still get choked up telling my story. I did this solid 45 days of grief where every day I did several things around grief. And my hope and my purpose was to be able to come up with something that actually helps myself and others grieve properly and find their truth. And that's really what the theme was for me, that it hit me kind of halfway through, like finding my truth. I've also found 5 what I'm going to call selves of things that really we need to be doing when we are having this intense grief. They are self-care, self-regulation, finding your spiritual self, self-improvement through study, and self-movement. And these concepts did come to me prior to starting the 45 days of grief, so I knew that I was going to be doing that. I tried various meditation things. I really tried to hone in on my spiritual self, my relationship with God, and several other things. I'm going to have a video on all 5 of these concepts. But what I want you to understand today as we move forward in this continued grief journey is that there is a how. There is, things that we can do to move forward, which is a trigger word for anyone, especially that have lost a child, right? I don't want to move forward. I want my child back. But we know that that's not possible. So what is our journey? And it came to me, and I really struggled with it because I do have a belief in God, and I know there's many people who follow me that do not have a belief in God. And but I'm also very angry at God, so there was like this spiritual struggle. But it really came down to finding my truth. And so I want to challenge you, if you are following me in this journey, that you find your truth. Today, write down, what do you know to be true? And then what things that maybe you used to believe or you've been taught that you don't believe are true. And maybe some things that are maybes. Maybe they are true, maybe they aren't true. Because it is so important that in this intense pain that we are experiencing, that we find that truth for ourselves. And I have grown a lot in this last year and in this 45 days of grief, and I will continue to grow. But the pain is there. This is not a do these steps and the pain will be free. And likely, if you have lost a child, you will never be pain free. I can't even say it without crying, right? And that's okay. That is okay. But what's not okay is to wallow or ruminate in this horrible pain. And so I'm going to share with you how we can do this. What are these 5 selves? How do we find ourselves, our truth? So just a reminder, self-care. We talk about that all the time, but what does it really mean? And I'm going to go into delving into that. Self-regulation. I don't think we talk about that enough. How do we regulate our emotions, this pain, the things that come up? You know, I often say, you know, it's the little things that make me lose it. I do really well under high stress, but, you know, somebody cuts me off in traffic or somebody's rude to me at the store, right? Like, but we have to have self-regulation. Spiritual self. If you have lost a child, or if you have lost someone you dearly love, we have to, and I say have to, and everyone says you're not supposed to say have to, but I really believe that that you and I individually need to find our spiritual truth, our spiritual self. And that's a lifetime process. And it doesn't mean finding, you know, this one entity that maybe you were taught about. But we're going to talk, when we talk about self-regulation and spiritual self, these are actually categories that we can learn from. Number 4 is self-improvement through study. If you were following me through the 45 days of grief, I actually reviewed several books on grief. I reviewed several grief theories. And I remember back in 2016, 2017, right after Reggie died, and looking at some of these grief theories, I was like angry. Like, this is, you know, this is not how this feels. This is not a natural process. To lose your children is not a natural process. And so, but I just kept studying. And there are nuggets of information that you can learn and grow as you study maybe grief theories or grief books or, you know, trauma things. Like, just continue to try to find that information that's going to help you grow in your self-improvement. And then finally, self-movement. Everybody talks about, oh, you have to process grief, you have to process trauma, you have to process this pain. But what does that mean? Process it. What ends up happening often is we sit and ruminate on it. We think about it and think about it and think about it. And all of that energy is going into the negative and just sitting in our brain and getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Self-movement is a conscious processing to move your body or energetically move this pain out of the body. Will it ever completely be gone? No. But so many grieving mothers, parents, spouses have not been able to move on because the processing is not moving it out of the body. And we'll talk about what are some ways to move that out of the body. So I do think I have something here, and these 5 selves: self-care, self-regulation, spiritual self, self-improvement, and self-movement is how we work through this pain. So continue following, subscribe, get notifications for the next video out.